A one-of-a-kind car, perfectly combining the features of a classic off-roader with the comfort of a luxurious SUV. In our country, it's often the car of politicians and gangsters, as well as secret services and security. It's not difficult to buy one that hasn't been driven off-road, but that doesn't mean it'll be easy. The Toyota Land Cruiser J20 series, also known as the 200 or V8, was introduced in 2007 as the successor to the Land Cruiser 100. At launch, it was the largest, most powerful Land Cruiser ever made. Measuring 4,950 millimeters, it was 6 centimeters longer than its predecessor, and nearly 2 meters wide, less 3 centimeters. It's no wonder then that the Land Cruiser J20 was eagerly used by various military formations, special forces, security services, and even the criminal underworld. It was an excellent ramming vehicle and was also available in armored versions. In the normal world, it was a luxury SUV with exceptional off-road capabilities. The Land Cruiser J20 has undergone 2 facelifts in 2012 and 2015. The first was more subtle, with only minor detail improvements, a new bumper and orange front indicators. More changes followed in 2015. Both the exterior and interior were more modern. The cabin featured a new multimedia screen and climate control panel, and new safety systems were added. Regular sales of the model ended in Poland in 2019. Large, heavy, dignified, and spacious. The expansive cabin allows for 3 rows of seats. 5 people can travel in this car in very good conditions, 4 in luxurious ones. The luggage compartment, up to the roll top, in the 5-seater version, has a capacity of 909 liters, and in the 7-seater version, behind the second row of seats, with the third row folded, it has 701 liters. The car is often used to tow trailers, which is facilitated by its weight. The trailer's GVW is 3.5 tons, some versions 3.3 tons. But the car's weight, which is approximately 2.5 tons, is crucial here, allowing it to tow a trailer weighing that much without adding any additional weight to the vehicle. The Land Cruiser is very comfortable to drive, but also gives you the confidence that there are few roads it can't conquer. Design-wise and conceptually, it's a great off-roader, albeit a large and heavy one. It's worth mentioning that, despite its luxurious character, the J20 was also offered in purely utility versions throughout its production run, but only in developing markets, such as Australia. Wherever it served as a service vehicle, it was significantly more modestly equipped. Instead of a third row of seats, the trunk features longitudinal 2-seater benches. A characteristic feature of these versions is the double-winged tailgate. If you encounter such a car in Poland, it likely originates from an Arab country or from a service agency like the UN. In this respect, the Land Cruiser 200 is hardly a simple car, even though it's built on a frame and has a rigid rear suspension. It has a low-range gearbox and permanent 4-wheel drive, of course, but it's equipped with numerous systems that make off-road driving easier and on-road more enjoyable. Many vehicles were equipped with the KDSS, Kinetic Dynamic Suspension System, a variable stabilizer stiffness system. It adjusts the stabilizer's operation based on the terrain and, in difficult terrain, disengages it, resulting in impressive wheel travel and axle articulation. This is achieved through a hydraulic system. If the car doesn't have the KDSS system, it may have the AVS, Adaptive Variable Suspension System, with AHC, Active Height Control. These are shock absorbers with variable damping characteristics. AHC, on the other hand, adjusts the height of the front and rear axles by approximately 10 centimeters, but it's hydraulic, not pneumatic. Interestingly, when the axles cross, hydraulic valves on the front shock absorbers open, regulating their travel, simulating the behavior of a rigid axle. The result is that, despite the independent front suspension, off-road with the reduction gear engaged, the system behaves like driving on 2 rigid axles. Of course, there were plenty of on- and off-road systems based on traction control and ABS. Among the more interesting ones were the crawl control system, off-road cruise control, known from later Land Cruisers, and the turn assist system, no longer used later, which brakes the inside rear wheel at speeds up to 10 kilometers per hour to tighten the turn. Mechanically, the four-wheel drive system is provided by a torsion center differential, which distributes drive power 50-50, or, in the event of traction loss, from 60 to 40% to 30 to 70% front-rear. The mechanism can be locked, and a rear differential lock was an option. At this point, I'll explain the model's nomenclature. The most accurate name is J20, while the common one is 200. These numbers describe subsequent generations and series of Land Cruisers. The 200 series belongs to the station wagon line, so its predecessors included the 80 and 100 series, and its successor was the 300 series. In some markets, including Europe and the US, the Land Cruiser V8 was also called the Land Cruiser V8, reflecting the exclusive use of these engines in those markets. The only engine that didn't fit the Land Cruiser 200 was the 4.0-liter V6 gasoline engine, designated 1GRFE. It was used throughout the production run, but not in every market. The second largest engine is the 4.7-liter V8, 2UZFE. It was used only from 2008 to 2011, though in many markets until 2009. Its successor was the 4.6-liter 1URFE engine. Significantly more powerful than its predecessor, it was offered until the end of production. At the top of the gasoline engine range was the 5.7-liter 3URFE, which came from the Lexus LX 570. It wasn't available in every European market. In our country, the vast majority of customers focused on diesels, or rather a single V8 diesel engine designated 1VDFTV. Until recently, it was used in the Land Cruiser 70. It has a displacement of 4.5 liters, and, depending on the market and sales period, output is 272 or 286 horsepower. But in Poland, for example, it was optionally equipped with a module increasing power to 318 horsepower. Power can also be lower. For example, in the East, Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, it was 249 horsepower, and in markets such as Africa or Asia, even 205 horsepower. A 5-speed manual gearbox was standard in some markets. It was not available with the 4.6, 4.7, or 5.7 engines. But the Land Cruiser 200 is most often available with an automatic. Initially, it was a 5-speed gearbox, and after the first facelift, a 6-speed gearbox. Choosing an engine for this car is simple, as it comes down to diesel only. Finding a Land Cruiser 200 with a petrol engine is possible, but difficult. Typically, only 1 or 2 examples are available on classified sites. The most common variant is the 4.6-liter version, regularly sold in Poland. Essentially, choosing a petrol engine should be left to petrol enthusiasts and those wishing to travel in countries where access to diesel is limited. In our country, such a choice is difficult to justify. Even access to spare parts for petrol engines is worse than for diesels. If you find and want to buy a petrol version, the easiest option is the 4.7 or 4.6-liter. The first, older, is very durable, legendary in its reliability and durability. It burns like a dragon, but fortunately, it only runs on petrol, and with proper maintenance, it lasts forever. Just change the oil, coolant, and timing belt every 150,000 kilometers. If you're looking at a UZJ200 and the engine has any, even minor problems, don't buy it. If someone caused the engine to fail and didn't fix it, it's easy to imagine the state of the other components. Its higher-powered 4.6-liter successor is a lighter, more modern unit made of light alloys and with a timing chain. It suffers from a few more minor issues, but if it doesn't overheat, which is easy, it will still last hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The obvious choice is the diesel. The 4.5-liter V8 engine has 2 turbochargers, common rail injection, and, since 2012, a DPF filter, thus meeting the Euro 5 standard. The block is made of cast iron and the timing chain is driven. According to those who have opened this engine, it's a very durable unit, almost eternal, but disposable. Once severely damaged, it's beyond repair, and even if someone were to attempt it, the cost would be enormous and the results unknown. Should we be afraid of it then? Absolutely not, as overdriving this engine is very difficult, although there have been cases of excessive oil consumption or damage due to a faulty injection system, which usually leads to the need to replace the engine. Despite this, it's one of the most successful diesel engines Toyota has ever launched with common rail injection. With common rail injection, in Australia, these engines easily reach 400,000 to 500,000 kilometers without any major problems. The key is frequent oil changes or finding one that doesn't require frequent oil changes. It's worth noting that the engine holds nearly 10 liters of oil, so servicing the car isn't cheap. The second thing is to maintain the cooling system and keep the radiator clean. It's not easy to overheat this unit, but if it overheats, you can immediately look for a replacement. The third issue is maintaining the condition of the fuel system, DENSO. If the high-pressure pump or one of the injectors begins to malfunction, a comprehensive repair is necessary, involving not only replacing the faulty parts but also cleaning the fuel system. Neglect in this area leads to burnt pistons or worn rings, massive carbon buildup, and ultimately engine failure. The V8 engine's design poses a significant risk, as not every malfunction is immediately noticeable. The loss of power, for example, if an injector stops working, isn't significant enough for the driver to notice. Therefore, it's crucial to react quickly if any warning light comes on. After purchasing a car, it's best to immediately overhaul the entire fuel system and even replace the injectors as a precaution, rather than paying Euro 30,000 to 50,000 for a used engine. Any form of chip tuning, including factory-installed chip tuning, is also discouraged. Driving with a low fuel level should also be approached with caution. The fuel level sensor is often faulty, and the tank's 93-liter capacity can be misleading. If you run out of fuel, bleeding the system is the least of the penalties. The biggest will be the seizure of one of the system's components. Unfortunately, as with all Toyota off-road vehicles, the main problem with this model is the frame. While a frame structure has its undeniable advantages, for users who don't modify the vehicle, it has only drawbacks, one of which is corrosion. This type of construction separates the frame and bodywork, and to properly perform bodywork repairs, let alone provide corrosion protection, the bodywork must be removed from the frame. This comes at a significant cost. The Land Cruiser 200's frame corrosion progresses just as quickly as in other Land Cruisers, meaning it happens instantly. If the car is protected immediately after purchase, it can typically be driven for 10 to a dozen years. After that time, a thorough inspection and reprotection are necessary, which can cost up to 2,400 euros. For repairs, especially to the frame, even 4,800 euros isn't necessarily the upper limit. The second issue is water entering the cabin through clogged drains. Water not only causes upholstery to become wet, the cabin to become damp, and corrosion to develop, but also affects the complex electronics, which begin to malfunction. The drivetrain is characterized by considerable durability. The exception is the 5-speed automatic from the beginning of production, which isn't as durable as the newer 6-speed. If the car tows heavy trailers and the owner has a heavy foot, this may result in the need for gearbox repairs. 6-speed gearboxes are more suitable for this purpose. Manual transmissions, on the other hand, are hard to fault, and the lack of a dual-mass flywheel is a significant advantage. Finding a Land Cruiser 200 with a manual transmission is even more difficult than finding a petrol version. The suspension is highly regarded. Its durability leaves no doubt about the car's quality, although servicing isn't cheap. Mechanics must combat corrosion and possess the necessary knowledge. For example, after replacing stabilizer bushings or links, the KDSS system must be adjusted. Specialized equipment is used to service this system, but only when hydraulic fluid needs to be topped up. The braking system is rated worse than the suspension. Not only is it inefficient, but it's also short-lived. Even with original parts, prolonged mountain riding or emergency braking from high speeds can sometimes cause the discs to warp. However, mechanics must contend with corrosion during servicing. It's best to at least service the calipers and, ideally, have them rebuilt. In 2015, the braking system was modernized and improved, resulting in improved efficiency. The new system can be easily retrofitted to an older car.